Hello. I hate making interviews. Does everyone hate making interview videos? Uh, Hi, I'm Tara. I should be honest. I have come here through Enneagrammer, and I want to get into OPS. I've been kind of in a weird place since I started trying to learn. I joined a year ago, and my thinking is something that helped me with the Enneagram was getting typed. I had thought I was one type, a 9-wing-1, the most common type, for a really long time. I was completely sure. I got typed, and it was it was just like the last thing I would have guessed. In retrospect, very obvious. And that's really the only way I have learned Enneagram, just by knowing my proper typing. So I'm really struggling. I'm not really picking up, I'm gonna be honest, I'm just not picking up anything. And I've been kind of stoned the last year. So I feel like it's kind of helping. I promise I won't freak out no matter what. Amongst other things, I'm just not the type that, in Enneagram at least, I'm not the type that freaks out about their typing. I was just like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I can't believe I'm not the type I am. I'm a 7-wing-8, 792. Yeah, maybe talking about the Enneagram will get me chatting. That seems to be all I can fucking talk about. I kind of stopped talking to people because it has gotten so obsessive. There's a lot of reasons I've stopped talking to people in the last year. Like a social type, and that's as soon as I it's kind of my drug, social, being around people. As soon as I could stop for once, just not feel addicted to being around people, I took that and I ran, because it's been really painful the last 5 years or so. I moved to a new city, and I didn't quite relate to my friends in the same way that I did my previous friends, and I was just really struggling socially. I like to be around people a lot more than others do sometimes. And I didn't realize it was so important to me until it stopped. But yeah, so here, I think that did help me get chatting. So now I will answer the questions. What is my average day or week like? I used to be a person who slept in really late. I had all these health problems my whole life, and I hadn't quite figured out what was going on until last year, and so I stopped till I could deal with them. Because I just suddenly could understand what was going on and what I needed to fix it. So I've taken my time to do that instead. So I'm not working right now, which is really terrifying. I'm just trying not to think about it. Right, that's just not answering these questions directly, am I? I wake up at, today, I wake up sometime before 8 o'clock every day. Whereas previously I was waking up at 1 or 2. And I think something that helped was my neighbor who lived here when I first moved to this house. I bought this house in 2018. And in 2019 he went to North Carolina for graduate school and came back late last year when I was in the process of working on health stuff. And we came back into a routine of going on walks with our dogs. I don't have my dog with me right now. He's staying with my parents, but so now we go on a walk every day with his dog, usually around 9 o'clock. That got me into the routine of waking up consistently before 9, which I wouldn't have been able to do even before, even with him as an incentive. His walk is an incentive. just because of my health problems. So sorry, I'm so sorry. So I wake up, go for a walk, get back by 10. 10, I usually leave to go to some place called A Place to Float, which is a flotation tank. What's it called? Sensory deprivation tank thing, which, for context, I discovered last year after like decades of trying to figure out there was something wrong, like physically wrong with me, that I was stuck in like this holding pattern from the time I was a kid that was just like, I shouldn't try and explain it. But it was causing me like just a shit ton of health problems. So I like realized that I just needed to stretch. I just like needed to do these stretches until I got out of the pattern. And then at some point, like last year in June, I had this whole gross thing where like all this fascia in my hip like let go and like felt like I couldn't walk for a few days. But then when I could walk endlessly. I can walk endlessly now. I have a lot of energy. The thing that really surprised me when I got my typing in Enneagram was that like a 7 is the most energetic type, and I had spent most of my life like laying in bed. I was financially secure for the first time a few years ago because I got this job working at home on the computer. I was a user interface designer, and I would just like lay in bed with my laptop on my lap and my hands like this and just this is like completely horizontal like this. This is the only position I could hold for more than 30 seconds comfortably. And it still was really painful. It's really sucked. I can't tell you how weird it is to just discover that there's been this like real thing that's been happening for decades that's really just like fucked my entire life up. Anyway, so like all that fascia let go, and I suddenly had so much energy. I didn't know what to do with myself, and I like started walking like up to 10 miles a day. And sorry, I'm way off track. So I walk to this place to float. I walk almost 2 miles with my friend every day, and then I walk there and back. It's like almost 7 miles. I take an edible like a few minutes before I get to the float tank, so I'm not like too stoned to talk to them. They're legal ones. For some reason, I get really paranoid about rules, even though in a lot of ways I'm like not a very traditionalist person. If there are rules that I don't think are relevant, I don't think they're relevant. And I don't. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Okay, I'm looking for the questions, so I'm staying on track. I'm not very good at staying on track. So I go there, I float for an hour, and I do my stretches. When I get out, I was talking about edibles. So anyway, I'm a rule follower in their like rules. You're not allowed to take illegal drugs, but Delta 8 is legal. And fortunately, that's the thing that I happened upon, really like causing all of my things to start letting go. So I take that, and then I get out, and I try not to make any eye contact with anyone. And then I walk home. And then when I'm home, I do my stretches. I'm someone who goes through phases with entertainment and how I distract myself. In the beginning, because I was taking a lot of edibles, I wasn't following. I'm a really big TV person. I like TV. I like prestige TV a lot. I watch all of it. But I was having a hard time watching new shows, so I started rewatching things. And that's another thing about me. I don't like having to rewatch things. If I've seen a show before and I can't watch it. I can't like show it to someone. No, see, that's an exception. If I show it to someone and I'm really excited to like see their reaction, you know how that is, uh, sometimes I can do that, but otherwise I just spend the whole time being like, I know this already. I know this already. Honestly, that's like one of the biggest things that I feel like can possibly be explained in one way or another by OPS, that it, like, sevens do value variety and newness, but there's something extra going on. Another thing that's a little extra going on, and again, I'm so sorry that this is not going to be in any way linear or answering these questions in a linear format, is that I really hate endings. This might not have anything to do with anything. It just might be me, my problems. But if I'm like really enjoying something and I know it's about to end, I'll like stop caring or liking it. I have this like core memory of being a kid and watching The Secret of NIMH and sobbing at the end uncontrollably. And it wasn't because the end was sad. I think it was kind of nice. I remember they were in a little forest glen or something. Anyway, but I was just so sad it was over. I was so sad it was over. Yeah. So so many, like, some of my favorite books, like we read Catch 22 for a book club. It was one of my favorites, and I stopped like 20 pages before the end. It's whatever it is, it's fucked up. I don't think it's a good quality that I have. I did the same thing, like after every Harry Potter book ended. Like I started on the fourth book, like when the fourth book came out, I was like 18 or something. So I just like read all of them straight through, and then I was bereft at the end. And the same thing happened with like the fifth. And so by the time the seventh was out, I was like, I can't go through this emotionally. And so I waited until the last weekend that the movie was showing of the seventh one, which was years after the book came out, before I was like, okay, I'll just read all of the books again, because at that point I didn't remember every single thing. So I really missed out on a lot of cultural phenomenon from that, which I regret. Anyway. Okay, work. Yeah, I'm not working right now. It sucks. My parents have been gracious enough to support me while I'm doing this, because they have seen that this has really fucked up my life. I've been calling it a body prison, but I actually haven't been telling anyone about it lately, so I haven't had to call it a body prison, which is embarrassing. Friends, I'm gonna skip over that. Family drama. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana right now, but I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, and it's about an hour away. So my parents really want me to live there. They actually kind of freaked out when I moved here. And so every month or so, they convinced me to come down and stay with them, which is so sweet. It's all they want. They just want me to be there. And then they cook all my food and take care of me and stuff. I feel really guilty. I've been so, yeah. They've always, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of guilt around that stuff. So I'm gonna skip over it. My dad has Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed during the pandemic. So that's really hard. That really sucks. My mom's really struggling with it, obviously, being the caretaker. And it was really helpful to find out. It had been happening so slowly over like a decade that I kind of forgot how he used to be. So it kind of just seemed like normal him stuff, but it definitely wasn't. My dad's like such a fun, loving, likable guy. He's like a DJ9, which is the most likable of the Enneagram types, apparently. It's like impossible to go anywhere without running into someone he knows and having like a really long conversation. But during the pandemic, My parents and I went to Vietnam before the pandemic. It was like February, March 2020. So I was like definitely paying attention. We got like so much free stuff and had like free, not free, but like we went to Ha Long Bay in Vietnam, which is usually like this overrun with tourists. And it was like practically empty. It was wonderful, and everyone was grateful to have anyone putting any tourist dollars in still. It was a few weeks before they shut down the entire country to foreigners. So it was really, I'd been to Vietnam once before. We were in Hanoi mostly, and I had been to Saigon, and I've heard apparently Hanoi is much, much, much busier and more crowded, but it did not feel that way at all. I was like, oh, this is such a pleasant, laid back city comparatively. I'm just going to become periodically embarrassed by how much I digress. So that's my family drama, the Alzheimer's. My mom's a very optimistic person, so it's really hard to gauge his like progress. Why? I must have brought up Vietnam for a reason. My dad kept telling the same stories over and over, and he was like a Vietnam vet, which has always been very like kind of interesting for me, just because he was like drafted, and he's like such a laid back guy, and he's very anti-war now, and he has all this trauma, so that sucks. But I think people have always appreciated his war stories. Just somehow they have like they're terrifying. They're terrifying stories. He was in Newsweek, like quoted recently because this thing that happened where he like stepped on a mine when he was walking point. Because he was walking point. He was walking point in like the area that like a year later after the what's it called? It's that massacre. I'm not coming up with anything, so I'm gonna Google it. I hope that's okay. I'm allowed to Google. This isn't a test. He was in Quang Ngai. Massacre, Vietnam. My Lai. He was in. So he was like he actually like was in the area of My Lai. In I feel like he was there in 70 and this was 68, so maybe it was a little bit out later. But it was like he was just like when we did our patrols there, we just tried not to go very close because obviously people were pissed there. To downplay it. I'm so sorry. Why can't I stay on track? I'm so annoying. But these are some questions that will get me processing aloud, and so you're going to see that I digress a lot. Interests, etc. So back to the entertainment thing. Jesus Christ here. I was rewatching a lot of shows in the beginning, but I'm starting to be able to think a little bit better. So I've been watching new shows. Okay. Wow, that's boring. Tell us a story about what frustrated you this week. Why is this making me want to stop the video and stop doing this? A specific story. I don't know. I can tell you I've become a little bit more acquainted with my just general frustration being typed as a frustration type, not realizing how frustrated I am all the time, just like low key. I'm a frustration type, but my trifix is triple positive, the hippie burnout. So I think I've always like felt like I kept my frustration under this veneer of positivity. Like if I get frustrated by something, I'm like, oh wait, no, that's great because This is actually somehow the best thing that's ever happened to me. I hate it. This is frustrating me. Is that bad? This is frustrating. I'm frustrating me. Um, okay. Fine, I'll talk. I feel bad. I feel bad like you're gonna be like, wait, you're not ready to get your typing. But I added this when I was still convinced that I was like 1 day away from, or I joined OPS when I was like convinced I was 1 day away from getting out of my body prison. And at the time it was, when I started it last year, I was sure that in 90 days there was no chance I would not be out of it, and stoned all the time and having difficulty thinking. And so what's happened is that I panic at the end of every month because I'm like, I've spent another $20 I don't have on this thing, which I'm so interested in. Please don't not let me. Yeah. I want to find out. But obviously I'm going to have to stay in and keep learning once I figure it out. So I'll have like another year ahead of me of this at least. And then I'm like, okay, well, I just get really stressed out that I haven't done it. And then I just feel really guilty. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's no way that it's not going to end in this month. So 1 more month is fine. I should have stopped and then restarted when I was ready. But I think I'm just like living out the sunken cost fallacy at this point. Okay. That's going to make me spiral past my ability to do this anymore. So I'm going to move on. Tell us about the 3 closest people in your life. Definitely my parents, my mom. Sorry to keep bringing Enneagram up, but I got them typed last year, which was really helpful. Both of my parents have very similar types, and they are they're 9-wing ones, like I thought I was. And my mom has the same trifix as me, triple positive, and my dad's a DJ. So I was raised culturally, I'm a 9-wing one. So I feel like it's okay that I completely misunderstood myself. And the Enneagram, I'm still behind. I'm learning to type. That's something I do a lot on my average day and week. I watch the TAA and the Enneagrammer. I don't know what it is about Enneagram, just like really, really captured me. Obviously, I'm a social type. Starting to see like how different other people's frameworks for reality is. It's just so fascinating. Oh my God. People are so interesting. It was so weird / it made a lot of sense to realize that I had like a pretty specific and weird type. There's not even like, they have a pretty big database that they're constantly refining. And there's one other 7-wing 8 core 792. I'm talking about myself appropriately in the question about talking about other people. Sorry. So there's another 7-wing 8 792 in the database, the celebrity database. I'm social self-pres. She's self-pres social. And it's Barbara Streisand. I honestly thought I was like the most easygoing and adaptable person. And that's honestly like, that's how most people describe me. But I I think I have them all fooled because really I'm like a social version of Barbara Streisand. It's so embarrassing. Just really, we know what we want. We're the divas. We're the divas of the Enneagram. Also, how humiliating is it to like see your patterns after a long time, or after, I'm 40, after 40 years of doing it and not seeing it at all. It's like, it's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. It's just like a fun veil lifted situation, but it's also like I just have long stretches of like, Jesus fucking Christ, Tara, what the fuck? Anyway, back to other people. We're also the most self-obsessed, absorbed by nature. Seventh. Okay, sorry. Yeah, my mom she was, when I was younger, she was a lot more controlling. She does this thing where she just like freaks out periodically every few months and then like is so mad and everything's so wrong. And I moved back in with them after the pandemic just because why not? I was living alone anyway, and if I couldn't see my friends, I might as well live with them. I was pretty like neurotic during not neurotic, but I don't know, it was just like an easy thing to control. Like not being exposed to the virus. I never caught it. My parents didn't catch it. In the very early days, they wanted to go out and do everything, and I was just like, absolutely not. And so it only took them like a week to adjust to it. We had a lot of fun. I don't know about third person. I guess there's just like a lot of options to choose from. I guess right now, since I talk to him every day, my neighbor is probably the closest person. I don't know. I've kind of had a crush on him for quite a long time, and I get really embarrassed talking about that stuff. So I'm like now mortified that a little bit like feel like someone's gonna find this video and make fun of me because of it. So maybe I'll stop. I'm starting to get paranoid that you're not gonna be able to hear this. That's okay. What's wrong with the government and politics these days? Oh, fuck. I've been avoiding this one. I've discovered I'm social self-pres, which is like the political activist one of all the social or the instinct stackings, which is accurate. I've always paid attention to the news, and when I was younger, I thought I wanted to go into politics because I just think about it a lot, or I used to think about it. I'm trying not to. It might be an age thing. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit hopeless. Yeah, I think I started feeling pretty hopeless during the Trump administration. Right now, just I'm, like I said, a very positive person. I feel like the trajectory of humanity is like a positive upward thing, but then there's climate change, so it's kind of feels like maybe it's inaccurate. Right now, like watching all of the trans rights things happening in DeSantis, it just feels like that's never gonna fucking stop, is it? They're just gonna try everything to keep progress from happening. I'm having So my parents are liberal, and I'm obviously liberal. Probably should have started with that, but my neighbor's dad is not liberal, and is one of those paranoid. Like, honestly, I know that he brought up flat Earth with one of our acquaintances recently, and so I don't know how to like relate to that. I don't know what it's like to be really close with someone that you disagree with so profoundly. I know he struggles with it. He was saying he doesn't like watching. I'm gonna drop this subject, sorry. Okay, tell us a story about the best and or worst time in your life. Yeah, I've always considered the best time in my life. I taught English in Korea in 2011 to 2013. The first year was really, really hard. The second year was like the best year of my life. And it was because one of the things is I'm a terrible teacher. In my first year, I was teaching at Hagwons, which are these like paid preschool things, or it's paid any age, but I was teaching. I like did a few times a week 10 minutes of a preschool, and it was traumatizing. And so I think that's why I automatically said preschool. But I was teaching little kids. I guess they were, the oldest it went was 10. Most of them were like second graders. And I didn't have any materials. The same thing happened when I did my Enneagram thing, which is that I'm complaining about I'm complaining a lot about the first year instead of talking about the second year, which is, so I'm covering both bases in number 5. That first year was hard. I had one co-teacher from the States, and he was engaged to a woman there and not very sociable. Whereas usually, like, what I loved so much about the second year was it is so easy to make friends in a friend group, and I just had this great friend group, and there's so much to do in Korea, so much to do. So every weekend we would go out and do something new. We would hike a mountain or get drunk in a noribong and run around the city. It was so much fun. So much fun. Yeah, having solid social group and things to do is so fun, so good. It's all I want. So anyway, God, this is a terrible setup for the second year. I got really lucky and I got a public school role, which is notoriously so much easier than the private Hagwons. They didn't have materials. I don't know if I said that. They didn't give us enough materials for my Hagwon thing, so it would be like the curriculum they would give us would cover like a chapter of a children's book a month. So it would be like, what, 2 sentences? We go over these 2 sentences, and also I can't teach. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I can't, like, there's a thing I have where I cannot choose simple words if the first word that comes, like I was about to say, I cannot modulate my vocabulary. It's very hard for me, so I could not speak to these children on their level in any way. But anyway, what I would do, the only reason I survived that first year is because I like grabbed a bunch of random materials from the dollar store or something before I came, and I happened to get a book of those hidden picture games, those hidden picture puzzles from Highlights for Children. And I panicked at some point in my first couple days and just like photocopied them photocopied one of them for the kids, and they fucking loved it. They lost their minds, and I became their favorite teacher because they got to play one of those every single day, every single day. There was a while where I couldn't find free ones on the internet, but then once I got like a trove of them, I calmed down a bit. The second year, I got a job replaced a pretty bossy, direct South African woman at an alternative high school, the first alternative high school in Korea, which was for like the bad kids of South Korea, which they just seemed so normal. They were like normal. They didn't, normal. Over time, I realized a lot of them had a lot of like difficult issues. This one kid became obsessed with me. I feel so, oh God, I think about this kid all the time. Mostly because he became obsessed with me, so I pretended I had a boyfriend or whatever, and not the best way to go, but like I didn't know how, we couldn't communicate with each other. So I thought that maybe like not having that as an option would be better. A few years after I left, he seemed to have like a bit of a mental breakdown. And the last thing I heard from him, he was like about to meet up with some religious people in rural Brazil, and I've never heard from him again. So I kind of assume he's dead, honestly. He was seeming to have some sort of like, he had such a terrible story too. God, I feel so bad for him. He was like really abused. He was taken in, like his parents both died, and then he was taken in by his aunt and his uncle with his brother. His brother ended up killing himself. Jesus fucking Christ. His brother ended up killing himself a few years into living with this abusive uncle. And then fortunately, like, the aunt ended up leaving the abusive uncle, and then taking him back for some reason. He had maybe gone into foster care or something. So that was at least that was where I met him, kind of a high point in his life. Sorry, God. Anyway, so the best parts, God, Korea. Huh. I'm just gonna. Oh, something I loved about Korea was the jjimjilbangs, these like public bathhouses. The first time I went was on a trip, like an organized trip with. Sorry, I got scared that this wasn't even recording. An organized trip with a bunch of other foreigners. And it was awkward. It was so awkward to be like naked in a. So the gist is that there's like a. There are usually like 2 levels to a jjimjilbang. The first one is the opposite of co-ed. I don't know. Why can't I think of this? Segregated. I don't know, whatever. The first one for me would be go into the, like a locker room, get undressed, and then go into this big room full of different hot baths, like pools. You like wash up, and then you get into like, there's different heat levels. Some of them have ginseng, some of them have green tea. It's so relaxing, especially in the winter. Oh my God. The first time with the other foreigners was uncomfortable, but then after that, it was just like, there was something so pleasant about the anonymity of being a foreigner there, and just being like, no one cares, none of these people, they're all very comfortable being naked. I was surprised how quickly I felt very comfortable. I'm sure I made them all very uncomfortable. Oh my God, one time, I don't know, I've never been taught to like exfoliate. It's not like a part of my beauty regimen. But you could pay like $30 to have an old woman in lingerie like scrub you down with these like exfoliating glove things. But I would always have so much skin that there would just like be like this older woman in lacy lingerie, would call all of her other friends over and like look at how much dead skin there was, um, which was humbling but also kind of entertaining for me. I don't know. What else did I love about Korea? Something I hated about it was that everyone, there's like an expiration date. You know, people finish their contracts and move back. And I'd made a really good friend, and he was excited to leave. So I was like, fine. But I felt like it's, yeah, hard to live there also. It's always going to be hard to live and work, mostly work for another culture. It's just naturally something that is difficult. My parents are big travelers, and when I was a kid, I lived in other countries a lot, and so I feel almost more comfortable sometimes being overseas. Something that I've said I really liked about Korea is, I mean, I mentioned I have all these health problems, and one of the things is that it like keeps my eyes are kind of permanently focused on a single spot, and it's been letting go, which has been so great. But I just generally have a hard time having any awareness of what is going on around me in a way. And there it was like just so expected that I would not have any idea what was going along because I'm kind of a stupid foreigner. And I just found that very relaxing, like not being able to figure out how doors open all the time. It's just like, oh, of course she doesn't know. She's a foreigner. Yeah. Just being clueless. I really struggle with a lot of things. It was also the first time I worked and had money and had a house that I could stay in because they like rented the house for you and gave you your airplane tickets. So anyway, the second year went well because they almost never used me. So mostly I was just like in the office pretending to work. But really, what did I do all the time there? Played a lot of games. Just had to make sure no one noticed that I was playing games. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, the biggest challenge in my life right now is definitely this physical thing. It really sucks. I'm so like hesitant to talk about it because I know it sounds insane. And so why bother? But yeah, I don't know. I'll say, yeah, I did my Enneagram typing thing, which was only 10, 15 minutes before, like maybe 6 months before I figured out what was going on and started working on it. And I couldn't sit up the whole time. I spent the whole time like this. I had like a really weird position. And so it's been helpful not to have that. Mostly I was like keeping up my morale. It's been really hard. It's really boring. I'm really bored. And it's really hard to like, my neighbor described it as like seems like I'm running a marathon where I don't know where the end is. Which I really appreciated that analogy because that feels accurate. I hope you can hear me. I don't want to do this again. This is really hard. The point is to get me talking about what I really care about. Wow, I could just tell you about TV. No. I don't know. It's something that happened in Korea that I was suddenly like, I mean, like Breaking Bad was out and Mad Men and shit, and there are like 7 different countries that are allowed to teach in Korea, and I just started noticing very it's everyone was watching Game of Thrones, so I just started feeling like prestige TV was like the lingua franca of English speakers. um, and that has become a habit that I cannot break. My neighbor like barely watches TV, and that's still all that we talk about. He's like started watching TV just to have something to talk to me about. Super embarrassing. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think not just because like my parents definitely use TV as a babysitter, but also because it's kind of all that I've been able to do pretty consistently, because I can like lay in bed with the laptop on my stomach and watch TV. And it's mentally stimulating in a way that not a lot else is. I like video games. I always go through stages of like what's distracting me or what I can use to like keep myself entertained. So I'll get really into video games or a single video game for like 6 months at a time, and then I won't play any for years. I go through phases where I don't watch TV because something else is more interesting at the time. What are my other distractions? Candy Crush came about because I just discovered while I was on my walks that I needed to do something. At the beginning, I was not walking to a float tank. I was walking just to walk, and then I found these like these benches by the zoo that I think they're limestone because it's Indiana, so it's fucking limestone. It's also like a limestone path about the concept of limestone or something. And I just noticed that my muscles would kind of like sink into it, and my thighs would just kind of like, and so I could sit there and kind of subtly do my weird fucking stretches. Yeah. I'm fading, but I feel like I'm just so scattered that you're gonna need more from me. What type do you see yourself and why? I feel so guilty that I don't understand this all yet. I'll say I feel like I have something blasty about me. Or maybe it's the opposite. I don't fucking know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mostly, I answer questions way too quickly. I mean, I think it's no, okay. I'll say I noticed that there's a thing where, and I think this is because I'm a head type, so everything's conceptual to me, and like they think that object permanence is the stage where head types are cemented or whatever. Where someone will ask me a question and I'll answer so quickly and realize that I have not answered the correct question. You might be noticing that's happening here too. Then I'll like go home and keep thinking about it. And then I'll like text people like, hey, I think this is actually what I mean. Weeks later, sometimes I think it really freaks non-head types out. But that's the thing that has made me feel like something about whatever blast is might have something to do with that. I start answering questions before I've really thought about what the question was asking, which is a frustrating thing about me. Yeah. What am I wanting to get out of the typing process? I feel like there's a few just random quirks. I've mentioned some of them, quirks about how I think about things that I've wanted to know. But mostly it's driving me crazy that people in Enneagram are having conversations about this stuff and I have no idea what they're talking about. And like I said, I do think that I need to have myself as a framework for things to compare. I don't know if it's the double hexad, non attachment, self referencing thing. Um, it's really like, it's just generally just so difficult to understand what I know about something. Um, so I'm never sure I understand anything. But I promise I'm never, ever gonna like message you guys and be mad about it. So, uh, yeah. Maybe I'll pause and stitch this together if I come up with anything else.